Oh no, what are these tourists up to in Spain? Let's see what they keep breaking.
Me that they don't want to look like a tourist when they're in Spain. Look, there's nothing wrong with being a tourist, but I always say to people that you're going to have a much more memorable, less stressful, and probably cheaper experience if you can get in sync with the locals and local rhythms. So in this video, I'm going to give you the 10 unspoken rules that tourists keep breaking.
I'm really curious to see this because I've been living in Spain for 7 months now. I'm an American, and I'm wondering if I do any of these things. Probably not, but let's see.
When they come to Spain. And so by the end of this video, you're going to be ready to have a trip in Spain that's more memorable and importantly, more authentic. Okay, our first unspoken rule is about eating out. You have to be assertive if you want to get service in a Spanish tapas bar or restaurant.
I do notice when I go out to eat, you do have to be assertive because people are just so relaxed and so chill. To get service, you really have to speak up or else you're just going to get glanced over. It's not like in America where they're there and, oh, hey, can I help you today? What do you need? It's like, it's usually busy and people aren't paying too much attention to you when you are seated.
You know, in some cultures, people are used to the waitstaff being really attentive, asking if they need another drink, a top up, more food, or even kicking them out of the restaurant, once they've paid their bill. But here in Spain, it's much more hands off. So that means you have to be assertive about your needs. So if you want to get a drink, if you want to get the menu, or if you want to get the bill, you really have to ask for it. You have to kind of chase that waiter down. ¿Me pones por favor una 00? ¿Y qué quieres, Carlos?
Otra 00.
Dos. Finally, I have my...
Hold on, I was not expecting him to start speaking Spanish like this. Is this a Spaniard?
A photo on a wall in a Spanish restaurant or bar in Casa Tony. Whether you're standing at the bar or sitting, if you want to get the waiter's attention, just put your hand up, catch their eye and say something like disculpe or perdona. And they might not come straight away because often waiters in Spain have a lot.
Yeah, that's 100% honest. I'm usually waving my hands like this. Hola, aquí, por favor.
More tables to take care of than you might be used to back home. But, if they forget or if they don't come.
They do look understaffed here a lot, to be honest, and people really enjoy eating out here. Every time I go out to eat, it's always busy. Very few times I've been out to eat where it's just relaxed.
In the next few minutes, just gently, perdona, disculpe, just ask them again. Be polite, but be assertive. And remember, generally they're not going to bring the bill unless you ask for it and until you ask for it. Here they're not as focused on turning tables. So it's not like the minute you finish eating, they're going to put the bill down and kick you out. Qué bien. Muchas gracias. One of my favorite dishes in all of Spain, boquerones en vinagre. A ver. It's like a vinegary slap across the face.
I'm actually starting to get a little bit hungry watching this. It is lunchtime.
Okay, so you've...
Where is this Spanish food at? See, I haven't seen food like this in Barcelona. Maybe I'm just in the wrong spots, but that's what I need in my life. This has to be the south of Spain.
Finished your meal, you've fought for the bill, and you're wondering if you have to leave a tip. And if so, how much? Well, let's get one thing clear. Waiters in Spain are paid, or should be paid, a living wage. So there's no obligation ever to tip. It's up to the diner, at the diner's discretion, if the food and the service was good.
¿Los españoles dejan propina? No me parece tan seguro.
No, sí, sí.
¿Sí? ¿Sí? ¿Siempre o...?
From what I've heard, personally, I've heard Spanish people really don't tip. Yeah, I'm trying to think because I asked people a lot about this and no one I know says that they tip and I've never seen anyone tip. But I'm sure people do tip. I just haven't seen it.
Siempre no.
¿No?
Nunca es obligatorio.
However, warning, I have seen reports of some restaurants in touristy parts of Spain that are putting suggested tips on the bill. Literally on the bill, it has a 0% tip if you want to leave 0%, and it has a sad face. And then next to a 10% suggested tip, it has a happy face. Now that is not normal, and it means effectively you're in a tourist trap.
El español sí que no mide porcentaje, es el detalle.
El detalle.
Es el detalle.
Sí.
Como el guiri.
¿El guiri?
El guiri Si es un porcentaje más, no sé si
Sí, ¿no?
si un 10%, siempre cuento,
Vale.
hace sus cuentas.
But you might be wondering, if you're paying with a credit card or debit card, can you leave a tip? If you haven't got change on you, can you add that
That's a really good question because I actually never thought of that. I always pay with my card. I use Apple Pay, and man, I just can't describe just how nice Apple Pay is. But I barely carry any cash, and sometimes I want to leave a tip, but I've never thought to ask just because I don't see the option there. Like in America, where you would see leave a tip and you could do 10, 15, 20, whatever you want to do. So let's find out.
tip onto your bill? And yes, you can. So say if the bill was, 48 euros, you might just say, charge me 50. And I'll charge 50 on your card, and ideally that extra 2 euros goes to the waiter. Oh, and
How do they track that? Just curious. Really curious, how do they track that?
these days, you can ask for your food to take away, a doggy bag. Just say, me lo pones para llevar, por favor. So I often hear people complain about bad customer service in Spain, and I get it.
That's facts. That's really facts.
Customer service can be really bad here, particularly if you're dealing with a bank or bureaucracy or some shops. But here's the thing, sometimes customer service in Spain that's actually good is misinterpreted as bad by people who don't understand the Spanish culture. That happens in a busy place like this one. There's always a million people in here. There's no time for pleases and thank yous or even smiles often, but it doesn't mean the service is bad. Hola, buenas. Una napolitana de crema. Smells amazing. Here in the Mallorquina, the focus for the waiters and the staff is on efficiency. They're trying to get through these crowds as quickly as possible. Don't expect them to be taking care of your feelings. They're just going to try and get through the crowds. Plus, in Spain and in Spanish, pleases and thank yous are often implied in how we say things and not stated explicitly. As a result, you get served faster ideally, and you're not.
For some reason, I've noticed when I speak Spanish, I say thank you, gracias, way more than I would in English. Especially, I always like to say thank you. I just noticed for some reason in Spanish, I say gracias way more. Even for things I don't necessarily need to say thanks for. But if I were to switch over to English, I don't say thank you nearly as much. I'm not sure whether that is good or bad.
Napolitana de crema comes out hot. It doesn't have time to get cold. And that's really what you came here for. So perfectly warm and delicious. Carlos. The next unspoken rule is all about how to be in sync with the locals. It's critical to understand if you want to be going to restaurants when they're actually open, you don't want to be going to shops when they're all closed. It's about how the Spaniards kind of schedule their lives and how you should think about scheduling your day as a tourist. Okay, so first up, shops in the morning are often going to open later than maybe you're used to. They possibly won't open till about 10, 10:30 or even 11.
One thing I noticed here, a lot of gyms don't open until 7 a.m. And I like to hit the gym at 6 a.m. just to get it out of the way, start my day. And there's only one gym that opens at 6 a.m. that I know of in Barcelona, and that's the Viva Gym, which is the chain. A lot of the other better gyms don't open till 7 a.m. and I really want to go to them, but it's just not worth the extra hour I could be missing of getting a workout in.
11 a.m. But look, if you want to get breakfast somewhere early, you want to search on Google or look around for a cafeteria. A cafeteria will look like a tapas bar on the outside, but it's actually somewhere that's going to open earlier, often around 8, 9 a.m., so you can grab breakfast, cup of coffee, and start your day that way. Oh, and by the way, this cafeteria is closed because today's Monday, so lots of restaurants also close on Mondays. Be aware of that.
I'm not too sure how true that is for the big cities. This could be for smaller parts of Spain because here in Barcelona on Monday, I see everything open. And I live right smack dab central in Barcelona.
And then once the shops are open about 10 a.m. in the big cities and in the center, they're going to stay open all day till maybe about 8 p.m. or so. But in the neighborhoods, like this neighborhood in Madrid or in the small towns, shops are going to open about 10, then they're going to close again at 2 for about 3 hours for a long lunch break, and then they'll open again at 5.
I haven't noticed that at all. I haven't noticed shops closing and then opening back up again. I do notice for example, for dinner time, a lot of the shops close at 3 or 4, and then they might open back up again at like 6 or 7.
5 until about 8. So right down the street, it's now 3 o'clock. All these shops are closed because they're having that 3-hour lunch break. So that's one of the reasons why it makes sense to have lunch when the locals are having lunch at 2 p.m. because
Oh, too late. Way too late for me. I eat lunch at 12. I just couldn't change over to the Spanish schedule. Couldn't do it.
then you'll have a big long lunch, maybe after that have a walk or a siesta, and then by 5 p.m. you're up and about again and everything's open. And if you're an early eater, really the earliest that the kitchens will open here is 1 p.m. and they'll usually serve food until about 4 p.m. And then when it comes to dinner, tapas bars and restaurants usually aren't going to open until about 8:30, and they'll serve food right through till midnight. But beware, you might see on Google that some tapas bars say they're open all day from say midday till midnight, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the kitchen.
Yeah, Google is definitely wrong with some of the times here. I learned that the hard way. I remember even Google was saying some restaurants are closed, or just some places I wanted to go to were closed. But my local friend that lives here, he's like, no, trust me, Google's wrong here. So just trust the locals with the timing.
Is open the entire time. The kitchen might only be open from 12 to 4 and 8 onwards. So you want to call them up and say, ¿A qué hora abre la cocina? What time does the kitchen open? Then you can make sure. And finally, there are all-day kitchens where tapas bars will be serving food all day. Generally, those are a little more touristy. But look, if you're traveling with kids or whatever, it makes sense, right? Feel free to use them. You have my permission. Okay, next up, let's tackle some unspoken transport rules that'll help you get around the cities.
Oh, yes. I hope he touches on the transport rule that I'm thinking in my head, because taking the metro every day, you could tell who is a tourist just by the way that they move in the metro.
That you're visiting. First up, when you're on the escalator, make sure you stand on the right so that people who want to walk up and down can do so on the left. That's
Yes, he hit it. That's exactly what I was talking about. That is so annoying. Me being a person that lives here, and I'm generally not enjoying my time in the metro, so I get on the escalators to walk up, and when I see someone standing on the left-hand side, just standing there, I can tell that they're a tourist, because you just stand on the right-hand side so people can pass on the left-hand side. So I'm so glad that he's hitting on this.
It's really important. And if you see an elevator, only use it if you need it, i.e. you have mobility issues, or you're with a child, or you have suitcases. They're reserved for people who really need them. And remember, when you're getting on the train, make sure you stand back and let people to get out first. Otherwise, someone might give you a little shove, or at least they might say, hay que dejar salir antes de entrar.
Yes, that too. That, like, people trying to get on when people are getting off. Bro, that's something that's frustrating as well.
Oy, sorry, I almost broke my own rule. And if you're thinking of not using public transport and you're going to jump in a taxi or an Uber, maybe think twice. I've seen people walk out of a tapas bar and jump right into a cab to get back to their hotel, and it takes them longer in the cab to get there than if they were just going to walk or take public transport, because of the compactness and the traffic in these historic centers all over Spain. So wine and beer play a big part in Spanish social culture, which might lead you to believe that we're constantly drinking alcohol.
I definitely thought that. When I leave the house at 10 a.m., you see people drinking.
Anywhere and everywhere. Well, yes and no. Here's the thing. Day drinking is generally accepted in Spain. So if you order a vermouth or a glass of wine or a beer at 11 a.m., which is...
If you're coming to Spain, you have to try the vermouth. It's a little bit sweet, but it's a smooth drink, and the Spaniards love it. Also, Cava. Cava has been one of my favorite drinks in Spain. And being in Barcelona, they actually produce it here in Catalonia. They have wineries which are amazing to go and visit and see the process of this. So Cava is pretty much just like champagne, but the cheaper version.
It is right now, nobody's going to think you're a raging alcoholic. You know, one of the things I love is that in Barcelona, you can go to a market and have a big, hearty, cooked breakfast and order Cava with it. People are doing that, having Cava,
Hey, he just mentioned Cava. Shout out to Cava again.
sparkling wine with their breakfast. It's a beautiful tradition. And you'll still see people sitting down in the middle of their workday, you know, for a big lunch and enjoying a glass of wine. But there are some buts. You see, Spanish attitudes around drinking alcohol and customs are changing. So you're less likely these days to see people drinking wine with their lunch on a workday. People still do it, but it's just not as common. Plus, Spain is now one of the largest consumers of zero alcohol beer in the world.
I didn't even know that. I definitely see a lot of non-alcoholic beer when I go out to places, but I've never knew just how much people consume it here. I also wonder why consume non-alcoholic beer? Like, why not just drink a water and be healthy? Or do people really enjoy the taste of beer that much?
You might be wondering if you can drink in public in Spain. Well, that's kind of regulated at the city level. And technically in Madrid, for example, no, you can't. But really, that is a law more focused on big groups of people getting drunk together on a Friday night in a square. So look, here's the deal. If you're walking around the historic center of a Spanish city, knocking back a big can of beer,
Probably never a good idea to drink in public. Just don't do that.
and maybe being a little unruly, you might have some trouble with the police. But if you're sitting in a park having a picnic with a bottle of wine, nobody's ever going to bother you. And last,
I've never seen anyone sit in a park and have a picnic with a bottle of wine. That could be in other parts of Spain. People probably do it, but I've never seen that here in the city. Actually, one of my Spanish teachers, she had told me how she was walking in Barcelona and she was drinking a beer, and she actually had got caught by an undercover cop, policeman in plain clothes, and she was fined for it. The fine, I don't think it was expensive. I think it was less than 50 euros or something like that. But just be aware, do not drink in public.
lastly, remember that the legal drinking age in Spain is 18. And while drinking age laws might
You know what? That's actually crazy. So the legal drinking age is 18, but I've heard people here start drinking at 12. You could go to the grocery stores and even buy alcohol at a young age.
be a little bit more laxly enforced in Spain than other countries. Keep in mind that the owner of a bar or restaurant can get in trouble, if there's a minor drinking on the premises. So understand if they don't let your 16 or 17-year-old child, have a small glass of wine with their lunch. Yeah, we do have public toilets in Spain, but they're really few and far between. And to be honest, I don't know anyone who uses them for fear of what they're going to find inside. And I wanted to get in here and check it out.
You know what? I've actually been seeing a lot of public toilets lately that I had never seen before in Barcelona. So on the streets and near bus stops, before I didn't know what it was. It'd be like a square, not a building, but just like something like he's in front of right now, just on the street. But it wouldn't be really labeled so that I would know it was a bathroom. And I didn't know you can go in them. I'm just thinking it's just a box on the street, but they're actually bathrooms. And also, speaking of public toilets, I feel like I've seen quite a lot of people using the bathroom in public here. I mean, just the other day, I was walking at Plaza Catalonia, and I seen some father holding his child, his little daughter up, and she's just like peeing in public, just streaming out, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But it seems that people are really open to going to the bathroom here wherever they please. And that's not something I see too often, but it does seem more relaxed with going to the bathroom in public.
It out, but this one's out of order. There is another one here in the historic center. We're going to go and check that one out because I do want to go in and see if it's up to my standards as a Kiwi. I thought the other public toilet in the Madrid center was in this square, but now I can't find it. Literally, this is, according to the map of public toilets in Madrid, this is a public toilet, but it no longer is.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the public toilets, which I had no idea were public toilets before until I seen people coming in and out of them and realizing, oh, that's the bathroom. But one of the things I really like about living here is that people, restaurants, and establishments are generally really open if you need to go to the bathroom without being a customer. I've only had one time where I went to go to the bathroom somewhere, and it was in a very tourist populated area by the cathedral, and they told me that I had to buy something to use the bathroom. But generally speaking, When I have to go to the bathroom, I just walk into a restaurant. The restaurants are very nice with just letting me use the bathroom, and they're really chill.
Once was. I'm sure there was a public toilet here. I feel like I'm going a little crazy. But really, that tells you, this experience tells you everything you need to know about the public toilet situation in Spain. What do the locals do when they need to go to the toilet if they're out and about here? Well, in short, you go into a bar, a tapas bar or a restaurant, you order a cup of coffee, and you use the toilet. That's what we do. So I've recently started driving in Spain after getting my driver's license switched over to a Spanish one. And doing so has been an eye-opening and sometimes life-threatening.
Ooh, the rules of the rural road. That's interesting. I take public transportation here. I wouldn't even think about driving. I think a Spanish road trip would be nice.
Experience. Are you ready for the ride of your life, Yoli?
I'm not quite sure. Let's see.
Get ready. Buckle up, baby.
And how many tourists coming here are actually renting cars? I suppose it could be quite a few. It could be quite a few. Let's watch this part.
Okay, so first up, Spaniards never indicate. They just don't use the indicator.
Hey, I indicate.
That's true. Correction. Yoli is the only Spaniard who indicates when driving. None of the rest of them do. So you have to be hyper aware of lane changers constantly. The second one is roundabouts. Roundabouts in Spain are a total wild.
There are so many roundabouts. So many I always see sell.
West, people are weaving and changing lanes and coming at you from all directions. Combined with the fact that they don't indicate means that you have no idea what's happening. So all I would say is just be hyper aware of people coming at you from the left when you join a roundabout. And once you're in it, it's like a rushing rapid. Just go with the flow and who knows what's going to happen, and get out of there as quick as you can. The third one is so complex, I don't even understand it myself.
The driving here can't be that bad. I mean, it looks very orderly to me. I'm also saying this. I lived in Bali, Indonesia for 2 years, and the driving there, just let me tell you, complete chaos, but everything flows so smoothly. Also, after driving in Vietnam and in Southeast Asia, I'm prepared for the roads. So whatever they have, Spain, I'm sure it's not that bad compared to where I was.
So you want to keep noise to a minimum. And the things to keep in mind are when you're going up and down the stairs, with suitcases late at night or early in the morning, try not to make a lot of noise. Often people's living rooms are right on the other side of that front door, just as it is actually in my apartment here in Madrid. 2, remember that walls are often very thin between apartments in Spain, so your neighbors may be able to hear everything you're doing. And 3, the other thing is that although we don't really have siestas so much anymore, it's not that common, it's generally considered still that on the weekends from say 4 to 7 p.m, that's kind of a quiet time where people are resting, particularly older people maybe, before the evening kicks off. So keep noise to a minimum during those times. And a pet peeve of mine is how many Airbnb.
Yeah, honestly, the noise minimum is really required here. The building where I live, I have people above me, and it just sounded like they were jumping every single day from certain hours. And my lamp was a little bit loose, and so I just heard this rattling noise. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, what are they doing up there? Like, what is making this noise? I had no idea. It was super frustrating. I finally figured out that the lamp was a little bit loose, and I tightened it up. And I still have no idea what was making that noise. I was actually concerned. I was actually really concerned that something might have been going on up there. And I had told my landlord to check it out. But the people said it had nothing to do with them, of course.
Airbnb owners don't give tourists enough information about how to properly dispose of their trash. So each city in Spain handles separating out recycling a little bit differently. But at its most basic, you're going to want to separate out plastics, paper, glass, and just general trash. So there should ideally be a separate bin in the apartment for each one. So if the owner has...
Yeah, I'm relatively bad at this. I confess. I just throw everything in the general purpose trash bin. But I do know there are different colors like he's saying here. So you have to locate them. And he's also talking about Airbnbs, which, do those even exist anymore? I know they're cracking down hard on those right now in Spain.
Hasn't given you information about how to do that, make sure you ask them. So this one really took me by surprise when I moved to Spain. See, Spaniards are very comfortable holding your gaze for what might...
Oh, yo, people stare way too much, honestly. Like, As an American, staring in our culture, it's seen as an aggressive act or just why are you staring? But no, the Spaniards, especially the older people, they will just stare at you. I mean, especially for me, I am taller than most people. I dress really well, pretty handsome. I mean, they have a reason to stare, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you're not used to that, you'll be a little bit uncomfortable and you'll kind of be taken off guard. But they love staring.
Might feel like to you a slightly uncomfortable amount of time. If you're walking down the street and somebody walks past you, they might lock your eyes for what feels like a few seconds too long. Or you're sitting on the metro, the same thing might happen if you lock eyes with someone. You see, Spaniards are super comfortable in that situation, and I love it. But I stare back too sometimes, but Yoli tells me I stare for too long. So obviously non-Spaniards can't do it. We can't get away with it. So this does not give you carte blanche to stare at people, but just know
I stare right back. And usually when I stare back, they look away.
that if someone's holding your gaze, if someone's staring into your eyes, it doesn't mean that they love you. I mean, they might love you, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's just kind of how they do it here. Okay, so now that you're an expert on Spain's unspoken rules, it's time to start planning where you're going to eat when you come here to visit. So